to the opening words. These are words by Kimberly Ann Carlson. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You've been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there's a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share with others. And so, you began seeking a beloved, welcoming community, people that do not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to the possibilities of love, a home for your heart where you can nourish your soul and cherish your gifts. Welcome home. Come, let us worship together. Just a little about TDOR history. 11 years ago, UUCLC earned a welcoming congregation status from UUA. Like Henry explained, we are a welcoming congregation, and had TDOR events in 2013 and 2014 as well as last year. Members provided the entire service with readings and rituals. We are grateful for their foresight more than a decade ago and thank them for building a strong foundation to help us learn about and honor LGBTQ people today and in the future. National Native American Heritage Month, you know I have to get that in, is celebrated in all of November. It is a time to celebrate the traditions, languages, and stories of our Native Americans. As so, we honor this land that we are humbly upon as we acknowledge that we walk upon the land, the traditional territories of the Timucua people, the original nation of this land. It is time for our chalice lighting. Chalice lighting is to begin our service as a ritual shared by UUs all around the world. Katie will now light our chalice. We light our chalice flame for those who live their lives in closets of shame, for those who have been ridiculed that they may find peace, for those who have fought to marry that they may celebrate, for those who live in uncertainty in the world that they may have hope. We light our chalice flame to renew our commitment that no one shall ever again suffer for the right to love. For this we light our flame.
All the stirrings of compassion, flow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the land, in life, shame, and justice, truth's holy flows, we set you free.
here, right here, stand by me. Katie identifies as a transgender female. Since transitioning a few years ago, she has become very involved in several LGBTQ groups. Over the last year, she's begun telling her own story to help to educate others. To quote her, "I do believe that we who are blessed have an obligation to those who are suffering." Katie. Go ahead.
I should have set this up better.
No.
I first want to thank Chris Cleveland for asking me to do this. We did it last year, was the first year we did it. And I think that afternoon, Chris was already talking about this year. So thank you all for being here. And I'm glad to be here again to recognize the Transgender Day of Remembrance.
Wrong.
Pardon?
I'm off. Keep going.
Thank you. I do ad lib a little bit. I spoke at the congregation on the Day of Remembrance ceremony, and sadly this year we need to remember another 53 transgender people who were brutally murdered over the last year and since the time we last met. First, let me remind you of a few items. My name is Katie Kohler, and I am a proud transgendered woman. I began my transition in January of 2021 after losing my spouse and asking myself 3 questions. Who are you? What would make you happy? And what have you missed in life? I knew the answer. And this came after feelings that I wasn't right as a child, followed by periods of cross-dressing on the slide for many years. This side of me I hid from the outside world for my entire life. After months of research and working with a gender therapist who encouraged me to answer my own questions and address my own doubts, I began my journey. It was scary, but I am one of the lucky ones. During my coming out process, I received much support from those close to me. This is not the case for many people in the trans community. Others face rejection from family, friends, and employers. For me, I am grateful on a daily basis for the love and acceptance in my life. So here I am, after almost 3 years after deciding to take this leap of faith. I am at peace with myself, and I have nary a single regret. I also want to share a few myths that I've been sharing with people since we last met. For those not here last year, this will offer some insight about the transgender community and our current challenges. Myth number 1, gender identity and sexual identity are the same. Wrong. A primary difference between gender, which is how an individual feels regarding their personal gender, against sexual attraction, that's what one is attracted to. Myth number 2, every trans person follows the same guidelines regarding transition. That is false. There are no set requirements in order to consider oneself a transgender individual. There are millions and millions of trans people in the world, and each has their own path and their own story. Myth number 3, the current political climate is solely to protect the children. False. It's not solely about affecting children. The attacks on trans and LGBT rights are being packaged as protecting children. But if you look closely, the rights of all those living under the rainbow umbrella are being whittled away. This has happened in 18 states where a certain political party controls their legislatures. Where they have a supermajority, these laws are being steamrolled through the legislature bodies. I did spend some time in Tallahassee during the last legislature session with Equality Florida. Some of the comments I heard were, trans people are demons, mutants, and imps. I'll take the imp part, but I am not a demon and I am not a mutant. The Muslims hate homosexuals more than we do. And this was a good one. I'll wipe out the whole bunch of them to protect the children. And that was said by Randy Fine arguing for the anti-drag bill. Something about the anti-drag bill. There was a single business in Orlando that filed suit against the state and won. As he was announcing the decision, the judge told the state, don't even consider appealing this because you're going to lose. They started the appeal process anyhow, but I guess they needed some headlines, so they asked the Supreme Court to rule on this, issue a summary judgment. The Supreme Court refused to hear it because they said it is plainly a violation of the First Amendment. A small victory, but we'll take it. Talk about taking these laws nationwide is presently being discussed in Washington, D.C. Personally, when these laws came out of the State House, my initial thought was to leave Florida and go live back north in a friendly environment. Having the ways and means to do this, it would have been easy for me. But realizing I was only acting out of fear, I began to think about those who cannot leave and made the decision to stay and try to fight this as much as possible. Though the powers have made it more difficult for me to medically transition in this state, I'm going to stay, and I'll find a way to make it work. Their main goal is to take away our rights, and basically they want us to disappear. Like Ludo said in the movie Animal House, it ain't over until we say it's over. Two more myths I want to share. Trans people are just as safe as anyone else. Untrue. Trans people are murdered at an alarming rate, especially women. In the United States alone, since we last met, 53 people were brutally murdered, and that's only the people that the police and families identify as transgender. A lot of people who are trans go unreported because they haven't changed their name or anything, so they just take it for granted that they're those. And I don't know how many there are of those. And these 53 people only represent the United States in the last 12 months. Myth number 5. Trans people are equally at risk. Untrue. Most people we will recognize today are trans women. Most of them are people of color, namely Hispanic or African American. These people are at the most risk. As a white, middle-aged, retired person with pension income, and a home, I have privilege, and I recognize this. I live my life genuinely as who I am, and without the same risks as those precious souls we honor today. Please keep this in mind as we read each name of the person we lost over the last year. Like last year, I also want to share some history on the Transgender Day of Remembrance, what it is, how it came, and why it is so important to observe. And this is from Wikipedia. The Transgender Day of Remembrance, also known as the International Trans Day of Remembrance, has been observed annually since its inception on November 20th as a day to memorialize those who have been murdered as a result of transphobia. Today we will celebrate one day earlier here at this church. The day was founded to draw attention to continued violence directed towards transgender people. Transgender Day of Remembrance was founded in 1999 by a small group, including Gwendolyn Ann Smith, Nikki Najaroni, and Jahira Diallo. They wanted to memorialize the murder of two black transgender women, one Rita Heston in Allston, Massachusetts, and one Chanel Pickett in Watertown, Massachusetts. After Hester's death, Smith was surprised to realize that none of her friends remembered. Pickett or her murder, saying, "It really surprised me that it had already, in a short period of time, been forgotten. And we are here with another murder at the same site." The first Transgender Day of Remembrance took place in November 1999 in Boston and San Francisco, as both Hester and Pickett's deaths occurred in November. The Trans Day of Remembrance continued to be observed annually on November 20th, the anniversary of Pickett's murder. In 2010, the Transgender Day of Remembrance was observed in over 185 cities throughout more than 20 countries. Also in 2020, US President-elect Joe Biden, and he also did it again in 21, recognized the Transgender Day of Remembrance and said, "The transphobic violence experienced by trans women is intolerable." This is why we're here today, to honor the 53 transgender people who were brutally murdered in the US over the last 12 months. Okay, I want to give you a few facts first. Well, first of all, there are 53 known, but in my research, I could only find 33 that were murdered. There was a listing on Trans Equality that listed 108 people, but better than half of them, died nonviolent deaths, mostly by taking their own lives. So I culled through it as best I can, and we're only going to read 33 of the 53 names, but please don't forget the other 20 and the other 57 who felt it necessary to end their lives. Okay. Of this group, 37 were of the 53, 37 were trans women, 7 were trans men, 4 were non-binary, 5 other. 30 were the result of gun violence, 4 the result of assaults. 16 were white. That would equals 30%, and 70% were people of color. Okay, I'm going to ask Barbara to come up and help me with this. Barbara is going to drop a stone for each name I read. And thank you. The first name is Bree Asia Banks, Casa Grande, Arizona. Second name is Benko Brown, San Francisco, California. Devani J. Johnson, Berkeley, California. Kelly Loving and Daniel Aston, Colorado Springs, Colorado. And the reason they are together, they were 2 of the 5 people that were killed at the Club Q nightclub last year in Colorado, and it's actually a year ago tomorrow, early in the morning. Jasmine Starr Mack, Washington, D.C. Skylar Harrison Reeves, Washington, D.C. Anae Johnson, Washington, D.C. Camden Ryder, Winter Haven, Florida, a pregnant trans man. Alexis Scora, Palm Bay, Florida. Landon Price, Miami-Dade, Florida. Manuel Esteban Paez Terren, aka Tortuguita, Atlanta, Georgia. Ashley Burton, Atlanta, Georgia. Rashida Williams, Atlanta, Georgia. Unique Banks, Chicago, Illinois. Lovely Page, Chicago, Illinois. Dominic Dupree, Chicago, Illinois. Lisa Love Terman, Chicago, Illinois. Thomas Tom Robinson, Calumet City, Illinois. Zachi Imetu Witako, Louisville, Kentucky. DJ Yoko, killed by a hit-and-run accident in New Orleans, Louisiana. Tashia Sia Woodland, Mechanicsville, Maryland. Ashia Davis, Detroit, the Highland Park section in Michigan. Sherilyn Marjorie, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Fernielle Mary Wowie Mora, New York City. Casey Lee Johnson, Wilmington, North Carolina. Devani Giroux Johnson, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Jacob Williamson, Pageland, South Carolina. He was 18 years old. Maria Fer Rivera, Houston, Texas. Lakendra Andrews, Dallas, Texas. Omi Gandhi, Salt Lake City, Utah, 16-year-old victim of patricide. Kashay Asante Henderson, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. China Long, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thank you.
We would now like to enter into a time of silence as we reflect on all we have heard here this morning, beginning with a prayer. Spirit of life and love, shaken by sorrow, we wonder why. We wonder how humans can find it within themselves to destroy life that exists also within them. Together we grieve in the injustice of lives cut short by hate, of survivors touched by terror. We stand firm in life, knowing that only love can ease the grief, even as it is love for one another that causes us to grieve such losses. May we mourn as a community that loves life, for we know that life and love must continue. A few moments of silence.